All right. Thank you so much for gathering back here today. Could we all settle back in? I hope you've had some tea or some light snacks or some coffee. And if you haven't, I really apologize. We're hoping you can get some during the lunch break right after this plenary. Could we all come in and sit back down? All right, awesome. Without further ado, I'm super excited to announce our next and first plenary. We are now moving into healing our fractured world, the role of social business. In times of division, social business offers something different, a pathway built on shared prosperity and peace. This conversation will bring together global leaders and development, environment, and social businesses. This conversation will bring together leaders from development, environment, social businesses to explore how we can heal fractured communities. Let me announce the amazing speaker lineup that we have for this plenary. First up, we have the visionary whose idea changed billions of lives, returns to address us. Founder of Grameen Bank and pioneer of microcredit and social business, 2026 Nobel Peace Laureate. Could we have you back on stage, sir, Professor Muhammad Yunus, for our first plenary. Next speaker we have has brokered peace across continents and led environmental movements. Eric Solheim, former UN Under-Secretary General, recognized by Time as Hero of Environment. Please welcome Eric Solheim to stage as well. Could we have a round of applause, please? Next up, with 25 years of work at People-Planet Interface across Africa and Asia, Carol Gibnow has seen firsthand how regenerative economics and social justice must move together. The director of the Doan Foundation, please welcome Ms. Carol Gibnow. And joining us online, a former president of Ireland, a champion of human rights and climate justice. Her work across Africa, climate diplomacy, and women's leadership demonstrates that fractured worlds heal when women are at the center. Please welcome Mary Robinson online. Next, we have the Vice President of the World Bank and Founding Director of the Biblioteca Alexandrina. Dr. Ismail Serageldin shaped global development strategy for a decade. He was the first to receive the Grameen Foundation Award for lifetime commitment to fighting poverty. Please welcome Dr. Ismail Serageldin. Do we have a round of applause, please? Next, Bangladesh's first private sector leader to head its core investment institutions. This individual brings a lens of sustainable finance to development strategy, a true change maker, and an old friend, Ashik Chaudhry, Executive Chairman of BIDA. Can we have a round of applause? And last speaker from Oslo, where Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Professor Yunus 20 years ago, we are joined by Mr. Kim Rexton Gronberg. He tells the stories of peace laureates whose ideas and work show us how the world can heal. Can we have a round of applause from him as well? And last but not the least, our moderator, who will, of course, drive this amazing conversation forward, Professor Faiz Shah, who has spent 4 decades building bridges between academia and action, training over 3,000 change makers and overseeing over 300 businesses, social businesses across Asia. He understands deeply what it takes to heal fractured worlds. Could we have a warm welcome for him as well? Over to you, Dr. Faiz.
Well, thank you very much, Freya. It's a pleasure to be back in Dhaka. This is the most looked forward trip that I have every year. And it's wonderful to see Professor Yunus back amongst us. Also, a special honor to be moderating such a distinguished panel. But there's also, with every good news, there's some bad as well. Our time has been cut down. So what I would like to request each of our panelists is that, I may sound a bit rude when I cut you off. Please forgive me in advance. Um, this kind of a panel is quite a pace-setting panel for us. Every year, the theme of the conference is outlined in this panel. So it's a very important panel for all of us. We've been looking forward to this, and I hope that you will make the best of this panel. We also have certain concerns about how the world is now literally spinning out of control, how we are faced with so many different challenges that perhaps the world may not have faced before. So when as we move forward, I'd like to introduce a couple of thoughts. I'm used to standing up and speaking, so please forgive me if I, fidget a little bit. Before I go on to introduce the panel, which of course you already are familiar with, I'd like to make like a point or two about fractures and healing. As a physician, when somebody talks to me about fractures, I see x-rays with broken bones. But what you actually understand from fractures is that there are 4 characteristics of a fracture. 1, it's painful. 2, it creates deformities. 3, it needs to be reset because it loses function. And 4, it causes considerable discomfort. If you look at society now, these signs of fracture are apparent. We are paining, we are broken, we suffer disfigurement, and we are losing social functions as we go. The other part of the good part is that there is a healing process also for fractures. One thing that we do always is we immobilize, we stanch, we stop further deterioration by building protective barriers around the fracture. You've seen casts, you've people walking around with things suspended along their necks. You also do, sometimes you need to restore, which is where sometimes you drive nails and plates and rods into people's bones. And the third thing you do is you restore. Traction, bed rest, immobilization, and give people time to heal because there is that need. And finally, we rehabilitate. Limbs grow weak after trauma, after fractures. Sometimes they deform. Sometimes they need to be fixed again. We need to rehab. And really the last part is sometimes if the fracture is so bad that it can't be repaired, we have to resect. We need to cut the limb off and let the stump heal. So I'd like to leave these thoughts with you as we project into our next questions, which is where the meat of the program is. But this metaphor, I thought, would be useful for us as we proceed through our discussions about a fractured world and how social business, connectivity, social capital, and the work that the Grameen family does across the world can actually be a healing balm. But first things first, introduction to this distinguished panel. We have with us one of our panelists online, and the others are all here in front of you. So our first, of course, is Professor Yunus, our leading light and mentor, who we've all had the privilege of literally following through some of the most interesting challenges, and I'm using the word interesting in a Chinese context. So after that, we have other panelists which will feature in some of the other discussions as well. We also have President Mary Robinson online, and there's going to be a quick introduction to each of them as we pose them questions. But the first question is going to go to Professor Yunus. And as you know, the whole idea of social business, this blending of wealth creation with targeted wealth spending has become a global phenomenon, and we all buy into that. So my first question, sir, is to you. 50 years into after the Nobel Prize, what lessons would you share about the greatest threats to social cohesion and global peace, like a 50-year perspective. There is a microphone, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. I will just go back and repeat a little bit referring to my bonsai story. Because all things happens because something in the framework we did wrong. It's not because something we immediately made one decision or other decision. That's not what it is. So we have to go back and search to the framework that we have. The world today will probably, a popular description would be, world is getting crazier and crazier. It's the only way you can describe what's happening. We try to change that. It's impossible. A piecemeal thing, it only make it more crazy because you didn't start with the reference point. Where you see a problem here, you try to solve that problem there. But the root of the problem is somewhere else. So you have to go back to that. One way I tried to explain this, I said, we imagine this planet world as a kind of a spaceship floating through this space, which it is. And then we have all the population, 8 billion people living here. What is their perception of their journey? If you look at them, probably they think we're passengers in this floating vehicle and it's going someplace. But we don't know where it is, but in the meantime, let's make ourselves comfortable. Like a journey in a plane, if you are in an economy class, you try to hope that you can get somehow to upgrade it to business class. If you're in business class, you want to sneak into the first class or find out some tricks how to make it happen. And if you couldn't make it happen, you stayed in economic class, you stayed in business class. At least you try to get a good service, good cup of coffee, good cup of tea, service provided by the people who are having you this ride. So you're always trying to make yourself comfortable than what you are right now. And you want to move forward to make it happen. Push everybody else so that you can get a little bit advancement within the territory that you are in. So that is the passenger mentality of the floating planet Earth. Are we passengers really in this planet? Another option would be, actually we are not passengers, we are the pilots. So complete change in the whole attitude of it. If we are pilots, immediate question is, where are we going? Do we have a flight plan? Do we know about weather? Is there a better way of navigating to get to the destination that we are going? But first of all, what is the destination? That has to be cleared out if you are in this spaceship. And we want to go someplace, if that's what our purpose is. In the first scenario, there is no such objective. We're just making us comfortable. Wherever they take us, we'll go there. Pilot is there. They know their business. And probably the root shock will be sometime, there is no pilot. We are trying to be comfortable. Then what? This is the disaster scenario. So this is our whole present situation is. We don't know why we are in this situation of this planet. If we are pilots, do we know our destination? Have we agreed on this? Or there is a diverse opinion of the destination. Some say, let's go there. Some say, let's go there. So we have no agreement on that. And we are fighting with each other about that. And can you figure out a flight plan out of this? That's where we are right now. We really don't know the destination. First thing I would say, we have to know what is the purpose of being here. And if we know the purpose, how do we achieve that purpose? We kind of occasionally pick up this issue, pick up that issue, fight over that issue, because this is not relevant to the ultimate purpose, goal that we have. So I'll go back, first decide what is the purpose. Once we decide the purpose, how to achieve that purpose. Thank you.
Right. So I think there's an old proverb that says, if you don't know where you're going, just go anywhere.
That's it, they'll fight with each other.
So that's where we're going anywhere, and we're actually not getting anywhere. But this brings me to the next we're trying to understand the fractures here. So our first issue is we're really not sure where we want to go. But my next guest, of course, is Mr. Eric Solheim, who's president of the Europe-Asia Center in Brussels, former UN Undersecretary of Global Environmental Leader, Peace Negotiator, and Time Magazine's Hero of the Environment. Welcome, Mr. Solheim. I have a question for you, which really draws out from what Professor Yunus has said, because the diversity of confusions is now couched in different terminologies. There is a language of climate, there is a language of society, there's a language of poverty, there's a language of all kinds of other peace building. But essentially, if we draw this question from where Professor Yunus left it, is climate change simply an environmental issue? Or is it grooming itself into a social cohesion issue? And is it now becoming an issue of security and global security? How is the climate crisis fueling the instability that we see around us?
Allow me to, first of all, just say 30 seconds of big congratulations to my friend, Professor Yunus, Mohammed Yunus, for his service to Bangladesh. Look, in the last 2 years of Bangladeshi history, which has been very promising, but also very challenging. You steered the nation through all these difficulties. There were a lot of critics, but you stood firm. You hosted the election. The election was close to flawless, recognized by everyone. This is an enormous service to the people of Bangladesh. I want to thank you for that. Then, for all the issues you mentioned, climate change, poverty, one thing stands out. We need a global peace movement. Because, look, wars are so enormously destructive when it comes to people's life, to wasted economic resources, but also to the attention of leaders. People simply don't have bandwidth for poverty or environment when they are all out involved with conflicts. And wars in modern times are completely irrational. Look to the biggest war machine the humans have ever created, the United States of America. It's 10 times any other nation when it comes to war capacity. It's the most technological war machine ever achieved. They have a number of brilliant generals. They spend trillions of dollars on this, and it cannot win any war. It lost at Vietnam, lost in Iraq, lost in Afghanistan, and it's now losing in Iran. So you create an enormous capacity with no result. Then move to Russia, who thought that they could win in Ukraine in 3 days. Well, now it has lasted more than 4 years, and it's still not come to a close. We need a global peace movement which stands absolutely firm on the issue. War is irrational. All we want to see in this world on climate, environment, uplifting of people, health, education, the main hindrance for this is that wars distracts our attention and our resources. So let's stop wars as the number one.
Great. And you know, the interesting part about that is we all say war is irrational. We all understand it intrinsically. We know conflict is not the end to anything, and eventually everything gets resolved around people talking about it in rational terms. But sadly, this is also why we have this directionlessness, why we don't know where we're going, because we haven't really figured out a mechanism for peace. a mechanism for getting people around rational discussions. So maybe hold that thought, ladies and gentlemen, because we might end up building a case for social business as the convening power for even things like peace, which we don't really connect directly automatically, but enterprise interests, shared success, those are some of the things that I'd like to touch upon later on. But basically, that brings me again, how do you convene people? And what comes to mind here is the role of institutions like the Dutch lottery, for instance. These are convening institutions. Yes, they are dressed up as lotteries, but they drive uh, community mobility in a certain way. They focus attention on certain, maybe short-term goals, if you may, elements of immediate gratification, you may. But these are convening institutions. And if I may ask Ms. Carol Gribenow, who is the director of the Postcode Lottery, sustainability leader, development veteran in Mali, Cameroon, Nepal, and regenerative agriculture campaigner and development finance expert. So putting all those hats on your head at the same time, if it's possible, where do you see and what are the characteristics of the kind of organizations or people that you fund for social innovation, for social entrepreneurship? What are some of those characteristics that you look for? And how do those characteristics get reflected in what Mr. Solheim has said and what Professor Yunus has diagnosed as a problem?
So, yes, thank you. The characteristics. Maybe it's good to go back also a little bit to what the previous speakers have said about the social challenges we're seeing today. I think we talked about growing inequality, climate change, the exhaustion of our planet, of natural resources, conflict, the need for peace. And I think essentially all these problems are connected. I think Professor Yunus also said they are reflections of a system with many cracks. So what we really see is that there's not one social issue that needs to be addressed. It's the interconnection between all those social challenges, which is very critical. And as the Doen Foundation, we really believe in the transformative power of entrepreneurial people. And entrepreneurial people we take in a very broad sense. I mean, it can be organized citizens that are reshaping their neighborhood or their local community, looking at social and environmental challenges at the same time. It can be artists and designers that are really challenging our current thinking around the current system, but are also creating new perspectives on a more desirable society. And we very much look also at, well, purpose-driven or social enterprises, entrepreneurs. We really see them as pioneers that are really at the forefront of driving this transformation towards a better, a more inclusive, a more healthy society. Talking about the characteristics of these people, I think I've picked out three. I think one is, first of all, having a very clear purpose. There is, with all of them, a very strong desire to change. It's not about solving a problem, indeed, it's really about changing society, changing the underlying systems for the better. Some of the previous speakers also talked about imagination. I think, or as Doen, we really believe that imagination is very important because you need to think differently. You need to be able to think about different kinds of services, organizations, collaborations, and whatsoever. So imagination is very critical. And then next, it's about really taking concrete action, but also perseverance, because all these pioneers are developing alternatives that, and by doing so, they're really fighting against the current. They're fighting against the current system. So it really takes a lot of perseverance for all of them to sustain. And I think you mentioned the lottery, which is also very interesting to mention, is that the Postcode Lottery Group as such is a social enterprise. It was started by people who saw the challenges by civil society, the lack of funding, of stable funding for civil society. And they developed this crazy idea of developing a lottery to generate funds for civil society organizations. So the lottery in itself is very successful. I mean, in its 35 years of existence, it raised 15 billion euro for civil society organizations across the globe. And I think it's a very nice example of how a very crazy idea, a very bold idea, developed over time into a very large enterprise.
Right. Well, thank you for that. So, but at the same time, as you said, the three characteristics that you mentioned are also ways of finding direction, because these are the pole stars that you bid on. The people with purpose, the people with action, entrepreneurial spirit are actually the leaders that other people will follow. So I think that's the formula that we may need to perhaps explore a little bit more, as Grameen has. Dr. Ismail Sirajuddin is the founding director of Biblioteca Alexandriana and chair of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, former World Bank vice president, science and technology innovation leader, education thought leader, recipient of the Grameen Foundation Award, and decorated international diplomat and policymaker. Dr. Sirajuddin, when we talk about funding, when we talk about resourcing innovation, we're always then confronted with the other big question: understanding, education, knowledge infrastructure, technology, innovation infrastructure. With your experience, we've seen that technical advancements have always occurred at times of social disruption. There's a war, a new technology comes out. There's an epidemic, another one comes out. So social disruptions are mapped very closely to actually technical advancements. What social upheavals do you think are imminent that will see the next big transformations in society? And what do you think now that threatens social order more than anything else from a technological point of view? And what do you think will shape the future of human peace and development?
You specifically want technological point of view, not the political disasters that we are living through.
Technology,
with,
right?
Some fairly, I think Dr. Yunus, as usual, says right, crazy things going on around the world right now, with genocides playing out on our screens, and the United States, after having been a pillar of the international organization for many years, pulling out of 66 international organizations on the same day, on one day, in January of this year, and so on. So there's a lot of disruption going on. There are about 50 plus conflicts going on around the world right now. Climate change is forcing people to move. We have, for the first time, 126 million displaced people around the world. That, just for your imagination, in 70 years ago, in 1950s, the United Nations recorded 2.1 million displaced people. That was after World War II, only 2.1. Now we have 126, so over 60 times more disrupted people who have no livelihoods and so on. I believe that technology right now is on the cusp of an enormous transformation, probably the greatest transformation we've ever seen in the history of technology in the world, because of the speed and the scope and the pace at which it's happening. It's not just artificial intelligence, which is by itself enormous, but there's also an enormous transformation in the new biology. The ability to manipulate and edit the genes of organisms in ways that couldn't be done before, and all sorts of other things that are associated with that, as well as, of course, the communications and technology that we know. And the result of that is going to be a huge disruption in the employment structures in society, because so many of the jobs are going to, the conventional jobs are going to disappear. An enormous challenge to the education systems that considered it their job to prepare somebody for a good employment function, saying them, we are training our graduates to be disciplined, to do repetitive work, boring repetitive work effectively, and to take instructions from an authority figure. And we give them a certification for that. We don't train them to be entrepreneurs. We don't train them to really care about society and their neighbors. They don't give them the role of being a good citizen. Now, all of that is being challenged both in the education system as well as in the employment markets by the new technologies. Now, every technology, from the invention of fire to the kitchen knife, has a good application and bad application. So artificial intelligence is no different. But it does open up possibilities for things that couldn't happen before. And I believe that a younger generation of young entrepreneurs who are born into this digital world, who have enormous capacity to cope with the possibilities of that, can harness these new technologies in ways that we can barely imagine today. Already we have seen some telemedicine, we have seen some improvements in a lot of things, but the possibilities are great. And thus, I think, in this case, yes, we are going through a huge disruption. The old order is on its way out. It will die. The future is being invented right now in the future, in the crucible of our minds when we imagine what is possible. And it is important, therefore, that we have gatherings like this around the world and others join us so that we can get inspired by visionaries like Dr. Yunus. He inspired me, I must say, back in the 1980s and 90s. We worked together in an enormous transformation at the time. And we owe that also to the Secretary General of the UN at the time, because it was Boutros Ghali who said, he presided over 7 summits, but the most important thing he said, he put out a paper for the UN saying, there can be no peace without development. And that development has to be sustainable. And sustainable means not just environmental, but also socially sustainable. Yet, we witness the gap is growing between the rich and the poor. The excesses of the rich are unlimited. I mean, I just was giving a lecture about water recently with 4.6 billion people who have no access to sanitation, 2.5 billion who have no access to water, clean water. What do the super rich do? You can buy, if you want, a solid gold toilet. Oh, and if that's not good enough for you, we have a diamond encrusted model. And I showed the picture with the price tags on them for those who want them. How can people be so totally devoid of their humanity to be spending money on things like that at a time when this is happening around the world? So I think that the model that we are discussing here today, the second great invention of Dr. Yunus, after microcredit, it is now social business, I think has a lot to offer. And the younger people will do it. When and how? Well, I think if you look at the time span in which all of this has happened, we would say that for visionaries like Dr. Yunus and the people that they inspire, they could have the old motto of saying, well, you know, the impossible we do immediately, for miracles we take a little bit longer.
Yes, indeed.
He's a man of passion and compassion who has the right vision to ask. It's a quotation that many people say, but I think it really applies to him. When we say there are those who look at the world as it is and ask why, and those who look at the world as it could be and ask why not. And I think we need more of that. And I'm happy to see that a networking effort is going on to link people from all countries, right-meaning people from all countries, to do the kinds of changes that will bring about a more profound transformation in the meaning of development, as well as in the stability of countries and the possibility of international collaboration.
Thank you so much. This is becoming an interesting conversation. You know, each of our panelists would actually deserve an hour on their own. And I would love to have that 1 hour with each of you. But time, I'm getting signals. But one thing that we find is that there is disconnect with interconnectedness. So information technology, we think, is connecting people, but actually it's disconnecting people. We think it's sensitizing people, but it's desensitizing people. We think often that it's helping people overcome larger problems. Actually, for some, it's creating even bigger problems. And this is the problem of the digital divide. People who are on the right side of the digital divide, everything looks good. Money making is easy, healthcare is easy, and they are able to unify around issues much more easily. But the disruption that we are also creating as a consequence is the bigger issue, which technology seems to completely bypass, right? And this disparity is also perhaps connected very closely to the inequality that we see. And women and children seem to be the biggest victims of this inequality. So I don't know if that is a logical conclusion that I've tried to draw, but it does make sense that the disconnectedness, the inequality, etc., has particular victims. And those are women and children more predominantly. Which is what brings me to our next panelist, President Mary Robinson, President of Ireland 1990 to 97, co-founder of the Dandelion Project, climate justice champion, transformational leader, UN diplomat at the highest level, driver of the Paris Agreement, jurist, stateswoman, and of course, global influencer. We're delighted to have you, although I would have loved to shake your hand, President, but what the heck, this is the next best thing. The question that springs from this discussion around disparities in women. Women have been recognized, of course, for their participation in peace building, reconstruction, as social impactors, as businesswomen at the micro level. How can increased participation of women in building connectedness through enterprise models, social businesses, reduce vulnerabilities? We've tried this a few times in different ways. And how can we do it in a way that no one is left behind?
Thank you. I'd like to say on this social and to send to my dear friend on so many the 50th anniversary, 20th with the peace prize, but also little leading this movement. Very dear, but also like I said, my friend Bismarck, I was with. But I just build on it.
Please.
I agree with, and I agree,
Not very good.
but I also want to focus on the misrepresentation, fake images, false, bloody lies, not to be believed, to confuse. The people don't know. And I want to give a response to the Latin Church. The human is from the universal creation of human. When I was human rights, we marked the 5th in 1990. And there was too much from the human rights on individual, because although important, there's also the, and that is recognized in Article 20, the second last. Article 29 says, everyone has duties in which alone the free expression is possible. So unless you duties to do something about it, you yourself don't full potential. And how often have been working with others who I get far with. And that is why it's important. Now look at the book today. You're right to suffer more, but it's also true that women are huge emphasis that is bringing, is holding women. No, that isn't creative, innovative. And I'm very to the Self Association in India. There are 3 members, the trade union, and they have come up on so really good, really innocent, and I learned so much. And we need to make sure what women are doing more visible as if less than 1 kind of finance goes to what women are doing. And so we need to change, and we do need to, in particular, if I may, the climate and nature. The climate and nature is because we have extracting from nature, taking timber, extracting, and causing these emissions that are now enormous heat. I've just come from London, where we had record in London, and people were, you know about heat, you know about flooding, you're actually more adapted and able to cope because you had them systems. But we need to change our approach. We need to have an economy of values. I'm going to have to leave. Very late. But I'd love to hear some value. Leave you with that.
Well, thank you. Although I must confess that there was a few breaks in the connection, but I think we got some insights into, well, 2 things that I clearly picked up from this whole discussion up to now is that there are enormous reserves of resilience that we inherently have. But let's move on to the next segment on this, and we're trying to telescope time as well. But the enormous reserves that human beings possess of resilience, adaptability, etc., can mostly or only be addressed by focusing on individuals rather than groups of statistics. Our approach has often been to look at large bodies, data sets to interpret specific problems at the local level. And I'm trying to make a case here for the power of social business, which is essentially an exchange between 2 people, a value exchange between 2 people. And it really drills down right to the human condition at the lowest level. So as we proceed into understanding social business as the language of peace and harmony, I'd like to return to Professor Yunus and ask him, so your very famous quote is that people are by nature entrepreneurs. They are by nature job creators. How does social business, in your view and your experience of all these years, actually help unleash this potential of being creative entrepreneurs? And what are the most remarkable and consistent qualities, sir, that you have seen in people that you have invested in as successful social business entrepreneurs? Oh, sorry. This microphone is terrible. Yeah, so maybe I can just briefly repeat again, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, sir, you always said that.
Who's the question addressed to?
To Professor Yunus.
Professor,
So I was saying, sir, you've always said that people are born entrepreneurs and they are born as job creators. And then this morning's example of the bonsai. Now, what we want to hear from you and your experience and such a lot of wonderful stories is, how does, in your view, social business unleash this potential of entrepreneurship as opposed to other business opportunities? And what have you noticed in your own experience as the key qualities of a dynamic, successful social business entrepreneur? And how can we generalize those qualities to other people?
One is the technology of it, another is philosophy of it. On the philosophy side, you're deciding this is what your objective is, and this is what you want to achieve, and you have a broad idea of how to design your business. And the technology comes how to make it happen. So for one part, they'll be just like any other business. You produce, you sell, you design, you market, and those kinds of things. But the purpose is different. All I'm doing, because I want to solve the health problems of the people. So I never deviate from that objective. I have the doctors, I have the nurses, I have the technicians, I have the equipments, I have everything. But all dedicated to make sure that I achieve the goal of delivering the healthcare in the best possible manner. And there, the technology of it is the same, whether it's making money or so on. But your objective makes you separate from them, because at the end of the day, you want to see that you've done a good job, best job possible to bring the healthcare. At the same time, you recover the money that is spent. And that money doesn't go into your benefit. It remains in the interest of the people that you're serving. So it comes back, it creates a revolving fund for you. So that when you need an expansion, you need a replacement, you need upgrading, that money comes from here, the money that you have generated. First, it has to be self-reliant. At the same time, it can create surplus for you so that you can expand. This is the objective. Looking from outside, it looks like any other business. Every other business will do that, but you want to maximize its profit.
Yes.
So they will cut corners. For example, the medicine that I gave is not the best medicine possible. I made a cut in that medicine part, give the second grade, third grade medicine to do that. Patients are happy because you prescribe the medicine, you got the medicine and so on. But he or she doesn't get the benefit of the medicine the way he could, because somebody wants to squeeze some months on the way. Or he is a genuine good businessman. He followed everything. But at the end, what surplus is generated belongs to him or her. It's not something that I will re-employ that money to benefit that. I may look for smaller margin. I may look for a bigger margin for myself. That's my territory of decision making, what I want. So I would say there is similarity on the surface, but the inner part of it is completely different. Yes. You're challenging the work. Why am I buying this equipment? I can make a simpler edition of that equipment. They made it complicated so that they can make money out of it. So your mind is now, you're providing the health service, but at the same time, you are making sure that your equipment that you're buying is also part of this game. So I look into it, how to make this equipment in a social business way. So that I can bring all the benefit to the people, and I benefit to turn the benefit into a resource for the business that I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For those of us who've always been asked this question, why would somebody want to do social business if they have other opportunities? This is the answer. It's the intent. It's the intent to solve that problem.
It's intent, and I was explaining in the morning, it's intent also for a good cause. I was saying, making money is a happiness. Making other people happy is a super happiness. And people say, how do you know?
Yes.
I said, I know because I did it.
Yes.
You don't know because you didn't do it. Do it and find out. And then you come back and talk about it. So kind of a challenge that he's ignorant and talking about something that he's not familiar with. I said, it's so intoxicating. Once you get into it, you can't get out of it. And even if you have conventional businesses at your disposal, soon you'll be converting them into social business because it gives you more happiness. Feeling so good that you did something nobody ever did, anybody ever did that for the people that you serve. I said, you don't have to solve the problem of healthcare for the whole country or the whole world. Use this focus on your village. You just focus on your wherever you live and see the results coming in and compare to others what you do. So you have to see the result which is coming out and how much joy you get out of it. Do it with joy. That cannot be bought. It's not something that you weigh with money, that I made $1 billion is worth so much in your unit of joy or something like that. It is inside it, the pleasure that you feel. You are relevant to the people. You're relevant to the creation around you. So that's the important thing for understanding the social business itself.
So this is the power that unleashes this idea of getting the super happiness.
Super happiness.
Unleashes the power of social business.
Absolutely. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
But this puts us in a kind of interesting place, Mr. Chaudhary, because we're going to talk about social finance and governments and all this other stuff. Mr. Ashik Harun Chaudhary is the executive chair of the Bangladesh Investment Development Authority. You're also the chair of the Bangladesh Public-Private Partnership Authority and the Mahesh Khali Integrated Development Authority. That's a lot of government/development work that we see. You are a minister of state today, a corporate leader, an investment banker, sustainable finance expert, record-setting skydiver, and aviator. So, I mean, do I have one person in this chair or what? How many people are you? So, but today we want to ask you about your role as a government facilitator, as somebody who commands authority over policy, over sustainable finance, over how government includes and excludes aspiring social business people. So the question that I'd like to put to you is, how can governments, and in your role as transformational government leaders and investment promotion agencies, incentivize social innovation for social business by creating concrete ecosystem changes? And a subsidiary to that is, will it be possible for a government, with all its constrictions and its policy straddles, to actually create an ecosystem where social business can be actually mainstreamed in policy practice and incentives?
Thank you. And just want to start with saying what you call it super happiness for me to have a chance to sit with Professor Yunus on the same panel and the rest of the panelists. Look, the best thing that government can always do is to just stay out of the way. Typically, government creates barriers. At least in emerging markets, that has been the classic role of the government to come up with regulatory hurdles that not necessarily promote innovation, that not necessarily promote new ideas. And therefore, the classic large-scale producers and profit-seeking institutions always have a way around the regulatory system. But the young entrepreneur or someone who's just trying to solve a problem do not necessarily get the right level of support and get stuck some way up the chain to resolve the issue. We've seen it many places. As you know, that access to capital for social businesses is not necessarily as good as the classic institutions. The classic government always wants to grow, and it's part of least resistance, really. The classic government always wants to grow the businesses that have already grown, the proven models. It doesn't want to get away from the classic money-making machine to the more innovative ideas. So for me, what really the government could do many folds, but the starting point here is for the government to measure what should be measured. So I don't think the policymakers always do not have the right intention in their mind. But if you take a step back as a finance specialist or as someone who looks after investments in the government, the classic indicator that I'm constantly looking at is GDP growth rate. And I'm looking at indicators that are predominantly focused on money making. But I'm not looking at youth employment. I'm not looking at the diversification of businesses across my country, how the economic growth centers are spread across the country. So the first problem we really need to resolve at the policy making level is to look at the right data set and the right measurable indicators, so that our policies not only track the classic development initiatives that drive GDP growth, but it drives a different form of growth initiative that will allow businesses and innovators like social businesses to make a big stride. We never look at how many new problems have been resolved. Are we looking at the very bottom of the pyramid, the problems Grameen is trying to solve, for example, or the social businesses are trying to solve? Do we see this as big wins? We typically don't. We only look at the very macro level. So that position really need to change from the government. And as we do that, I do believe that we will be able to make good strides.
Great. Thank you for that. So what we're actually looking at now is actually challenging the existing models. To do that, we need convening power both inside the government and outside, which means we need a structured peace or social stability mechanism. We need creative financing that encourages innovation. We need investments in technology and the kind of ecosystem that this kind of social business can thrive in. But we've got one very important thing left. How do we talk about it? So we've got Mr. Kim Groneberg, who's the Director of Communications at the Nobel Peace Center. He's a storyteller, and we heard you earlier on this day about narratives, strategic communication. You're a peace builder, you're a cross-cultural outreach expert, and a creative communications person. So here's the question. We've been talking about all these very diverse but quite interconnected discussions. What role do narratives play in transforming societies? And how can peace building or healing approaches contribute to narrative building in a positive way so that they can actually support these alternatives that we are talking about, these parallel universe that we are trying to create in supporting social businesses and enterprise-led development? Any tips from your experience?
Well, thank you. Well, I think people in general love to tell stories. We've been doing it around bonfires, and we've been doing it on stage today. And in any good story, we need a hero. And I feel that one of the most impactful things for me today was to listen to the three loners, the borrowers on stage today who talked about their stories. And that just shows impact, and that gives inspiration and hope to everyone in this room. So I think we need to continue telling those stories, positive stories. But that is difficult because we know that conflict and hate unfortunately travels faster digitally than facts. So we need free press. We need to safeguard our information system. And we need to educate our youth to be able to disagree together, to listen to someone else's opinion without walking away. So I think all of these elements are very important. Unfortunately, the Nobel Peace Prize is full of stories like this. So this is something we try to do at the Peace Center. And we have 125 years of people who have changed the world. And we have one here today. So being here gives me more inspiration to go back to Oslo and to tell all the visitors that we have there, both physically and online, that look up to these people rather than the influencers that pop up in your Instagram feed. And maybe even though the World Cup is great to watch, and there are some great role models in football, I think the greatest role models is to be found in the Peace Prize history and in the borrowers on stage here today, and we should look elsewhere for positive role models.
Great. Well, thank you, role models. So we are now exactly 45 minutes into the session. I would like to leave it, slightly flexible so you can ask questions. But allow me to quickly try to see what we have grabbed out of this. So what was the question? How do we heal fractures in society? Here is the wisdom that we have shared. We need to convene for healing or peace. We need to free communications and drop the digital or otherwise divides in society. We need to measure correctly what we are measuring and then use that for decision making. We need to create an alternative, usable universe for people who want to actually break out of the existing system We can't dismantle the system, as Professor Yunus said. But we can create an alternative where people will drive or vote with their feet and populate over time. We need to create heroes and champions and people who will take small actions but meaningful actions to build the social business movement and heal society. We need to tell the stories and we need to highlight what suffering or pain or lessons they have. And we need to finally build intent. The only thing that we haven't done or said so far in like global dialogues is building intent. And all the things that this panel has indicated to us should actually converge into an intent building thing. If we intend to do something, as Professor Yunus said, time will be on our side, people will be on our side, and we will shift the wind. So thanks. You probably noticed, dear panel, that I've telescoped your questions into one. The questions were long because I knew we had to keep time, so my apologies for, rather than interrupting you, I thought I'd just club the questions together. Thank you for your patience. We have about 5 minutes for questions. If anybody has their hand up or whatever, would you like to ask a couple of questions more before we close? Yes, please go ahead. There is a microphone somewhere, and we have 2 hands up. Yes, sir. The gentleman in the USA T-shirt. And yes, please.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
And please also direct your question at whoever you wish to.
Okay. So I have the privilege to see Dr. Yunus while he visited Australia a few times, and I was one of the organizers of this event. So at this moment in Australia, there is huge opportunity of migration. So, and this could be a social business because I got also a international migration, immigration license. So just wondering whether our Yunus Center can take initiative to help build up collaboration with government to export more skilled manpower in Australia like nurses, because there are huge opportunities. We need hundreds of thousands of nurses in Australia. And the main barrier is English language proficiency. I spoke to sir a few times while he visited Australia. So whether we can take some initiative like India, that they are sending their nurses in Australia while they recognize their degree, but where our Bangladesh degree is not recognized.
This question is for Professor Yunus, is it?
Yes. Yes.
So there's a question for you, and the gentleman here is asking that, but Bangladesh has a lot of potential to export people and workers. What would be your recommendation to the government and to people who are preparing these people to do so that more Bangladeshi people can go and find good employment overseas?
Well, thank you for raising the issue. It's a very important issue. Migration from Bangladesh for job opportunities in other countries. You mentioned Australia needs so many of them. And so is Japan needs so many of them. And many other countries in Europe needs them. So we have an opportunity there, how to make it happen. And here there are many agencies trying to do that. Many of them money makers, and in search of money, they manipulate things, create wrong kind of certification, etc., etc. So these are the things that the government should be looking after, so that all the corruption involved in that, so that people can go in a natural way, transparent way, and so on. But the demand for manpower from Bangladesh is enormous. There's no doubt about that. So how to make that facilities possible? Bangladesh has created lots of facilities on paper, but not particularly productive one that comes out. So this is a limitation of the weaknesses of the system, but definitely there's lots of possibilities to take advantage of. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's a great question for a panel that's talking about job creators and self-reliance. So if you can create a mechanism where these people can actually go out and find opportunity in other countries, that multiplies the landscape for job creation and self-reliance. We have another question from the gentleman in the blue jacket, the light blue jacket, please. Right in the front row, right here. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is Dr. Hasnat Hussain.
Could you speak?
Thank you, Chair. This is Dr. Hasnat Hussain. I happen to chair the global NRBs, non-resident Bangladesh. And I have executives in almost all the cities and countries in this world. Now, this is a tribute to Professor Ines and for inviting me into this inaugural session of social business event. Now, my question is directed towards our young entrepreneur, Ashik Chaudhary, if I got his name correct, because I believe he worked closely with the interim government and also with the present government. The things that has been discussed here, I'm sorry, Chair, it might sound that the way it has been conducted, it has pointed to barriers. But here we have a plane load of people and we have a captain in the name of Professor Dr. Yunus. And it is only to see, we know where we want to go. We want to see now the pathways, the flight plan. So this seminar, this part of the seminar gives me great incentive that we have a pilot, we have plane load of people who have entered into this dream of Professor Yunus, and only thing to do is not in looking into the cracks, but also look into the flight plans. Now, I will raise few questions to Mr. Ashik.
And I may exercise my right as a moderator to not answer all of them, if that's okay?
Yes.
So if you would kindly make it short so that we can let everybody go.
Yes, it's about, say, we were talking about employment. This country produces a lot of people with degrees, but we do not have mechanism. We didn't develop, we don't have industries going with the ethical values that Professor Yunus has pointed out. And also, these young people, where do they go? The gentleman just now mentioned Australia. I have been to Australia also. They are the one people who can grow tomatoes and potatoes. They don't want anything. And they have passed the resolution in their parliament also, but we failed to take it over. The Chinese are taking it.
If I may ask, Singh, for your question, please. Yes,
the
please.
question is, what are the policies, the present government, which you are working with, which you worked with the interim government also, are looking into these ethical values and to create opportunities to get jobs, both locally here, we are, like Professor Yunus has said, we are producing nurses. Before exporting nurses, what are we doing to do all these?
So the question is to Professor Yunus, and it is about what are we doing, sir, or what could we do to provide ethics education to the people we are creating so that they can get better opportunities overseas.
And also to Mr. Ashik, because he is working with the present government, you are not looking in just profiting and showing graphs. What are you doing with this present government to look into the real problem, real job opportunities, and then to introduce the ethical values for our businessmen to look into and help Dr. Yunus dream towards that?
So basically the government's role in promoting what Professor Yunus would say in terms of ethics education.
Since the sound system didn't work very well for me, why don't we bilaterally discuss it? Because we have lots of issues, lots of advice. Thank you. We'll do that.
Well, that's a great end to the session because now we can all come here and talk to Professor Yunus because we are also ending time. But Mr. Chaudhary, would you like to very briefly respond to this?
Yeah, I mean, look, the hypothesis with what we had during the interim government under the leadership of Sir hasn't changed much under the current government. The hypothesis is we would like to build Bangladesh as a regional and possibly a global manufacturing hub, and therefore push the employment generation through industrialization. Industrialization that is driven by high human intensive industries. So all the policies that you will see that we kind of started to design during last government's period, and we've tailored it slightly more given it's a political government, are very focused on those specific issues. So be it making sure that we have the right industrial parks, be it making sure that we upskill the existing resources so that they're able to join the workforce. The education system itself needs to be tweaked slightly to make sure that they have the right set of skills instead of just classic literature. So that's what we're trying to do now. That's our ambition. And I genuinely believe that if the machinery behaves the right way it should, and if you all support us, we should be able to get that at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. But in a kind of a larger context, the way social business is described and practiced and demonstrated by the Grameen family is actually a countermeasure for producing, assembly line workers, or what we call, just photocopy students, who have a certificate but don't really have anything that they can build their own lives with. In some ways, the answer may not be this, but the larger question of channeling resources is actually channeling resources to self-reliant careers. That is the message. And if we are self-reliant, the conflict in society will become distant. Our own problems, aspirations, and goals will become prominent and predominant, and peace will prevail. I would like to end this session way behind time, but I really wanted to go on and listen more. But there's other speakers whose time we are now getting into. And of course, there's lunch in the way. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for making this session a vibrant one. I'd particularly like to thank you, Sir Professor Yunus, and all the distinguished, esteemed panelists for making time. And I know we should have at least a session that covers in more detail and greater texture some of these very strongly felt issues. But thank you for making time. And if I've not addressed any of those questions, these guys are going to make a beeline for you and ask. So I'm going to run away now and let you be at the mercy of everybody else's questions after. Thank you so much. There's a photograph after this, and then we're done. Thank you so much once again, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. All right, awesome. Thank you so much for staying with us for that plenary, and I hope you really enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. We will be now breaking for lunch. Please follow the exit on the back and make your way towards the lunch building. We will be commencing the rest of the segments from 2:45. So requesting everybody to come back to the main hall by 2:45 for the rest of the event. Thank you so much. Please make your way for lunch into the food hall. Thank you.